Poor people who came here illegally, especially violent criminals, get the border closed, which they have effectively done, and you deal with the individual situations along the way. And you have to keep one thing in mind. Whenever you make exceptions, whenever you say, well, in this case, we'll give you some dispensation, the message then to everyone else is clear. Just get here and maybe you'll find a way to stay.
What's happening, everybody? Yesterday, Scott Jennings joined the panel on CNN's The Arena with Casey Hunt. Scott Jennings and the panel discussed their evaluations of Donald Trump's first 100 days in office. Guess who on the panel, besides Scott Jennings, thinks Donald Trump is doing well? I'll keep you in suspense and let you see for yourself. Anyway, let's watch Scott Jennings look like a sane person speaking to a bunch of mental patients. Let's go.
So let's talk about big picture for a second. Scott Jennings, I'll put this to you because, of course, the president spoke to reporters at the Atlantic magazine. Here was the quote that they gave him, or that he gave them. So they write this: "We asked the president if his second term felt different from his first. He said it did. The first time I had two things to do," Trump says, "run the country and survive. I had all these crooked guys," he said. "And then the second time, I run the country and the world." So obviously this is speaking to a lot of different things, especially that he has stacked this administration with people who are loyal to him. He was able to do that because of how the Republican Party has changed. But I think in the context of the economy, one of the things that I keep coming back to is the thing that spooked Wall Street was Treasury bonds and the question of whether U.S. economic hegemony is going to continue or not. Is that what Trump is putting at risk here? Like, can he actually run the world? Can America run the world if that piece of this breaks?
Well, I think that's why all these conversations they're having with these countries is so vital. They need to roll out a couple of deals with a couple of our biggest allies. Even if everything else takes a long time, that would show the rest of the world, okay, the United States is here to make deals. We're here to do deals with our allies that are mutually beneficial, that put American workers at the center of our economic policy. But just the mere announcement of having done it, I would think, would calm things down. Regarding this idea that he runs the world, I mean, this phrase was coined, I think, in 1948. The President of the United States is the leader of the free world. And you look at all the things he's involved in, economically, trying to solve the war in Ukraine, stuff going on in the Middle East. There is no doubt that he, Donald Trump, as the president, is the leader of the free world, and we ought to all be rooting for his success. But I do think the secret sauce here is showing people that progress can be made in short order. And it sounds like things are on deck.
I mean, the voters think that that's incredibly lame right now. Right?
Yeah,
Is what they're telling.
Saying,
Remember the paddles at the State of the Union?
Wait, I'll just say, okay. I think that there are some different conversations that are happening in the party. There are people like myself who are like, I'm getting out of Washington, D.C. I didn't stay here for the correspondence dinner. You know why? Because the voters I want to talk to, they aren't watching the correspondence dinner, whether there was a comedian or not. That is not what people are focusing on. They're not, sadly, getting their news from CNN. They're getting their news from online. And so I have also said this, that when Donald Trump lost in 2020, Republicans didn't change their message. They actually doubled down on it. I do think Democrats have policies that people like. I do think we have a communications and I think we have a messenger problem right now, which goes to the candidates. So we need to make sure we have, we talk about being the Big Tent Coalition. We actually need to be the Big Tent Coalition, which means sometimes you will have in your coalition people you don't always agree with. But that's what was so special about the Democratic Party. I don't have to get 100% at it. But
saying you are going to send a strongly worded letter in today's political climate is roughly the equivalent of putting a slice of cheese on a frozen hamburger patty on a grill, which Chuck Schumer is famous for doing. You've totally missed.
I was wondering where you were going there.
Right. You've completely and totally misunderstood the way political communications work, just the way you misunderstand the way grills work. That is not going to cut it for them. And by the way, Clyburn saying he had no idea Joe Biden was in decline and wasn't in a position to know whether he was in decline, his biggest supporter in Congress, Lord have mercy. The scandal deepens, is what I took away from that.
I don't know if you guys heard, but there's some big Scott Jennings news. He's considering a run for senator in Kentucky to take over for Mitch McConnell, who's retiring. Apparently he's up for it, and he's just waiting on the green light from Donald Trump, so we'll see. But let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? Do you like this idea of him running for senator, or is he needed more at CNN? I think you can make arguments for both, but I think our familiarity with him and the way he thinks, would be nice to have a conservative senator in Congress like that. And I think he's okay stepping away from CNN because, as we've talked about on this channel, you've got Shermichael, you've got Batya. I mean, they've got a good bench there. Again, let me know in the comments if you agree with that, or make your case why maybe he should stay at CNN. I'd love to hear it. Just before Scott made his comments in that last clip, I don't know if you caught it, but Ashley Allison was talking about something. I actually don't know what she was talking about, and I obviously had to prepare for this. I don't remember what she was talking about. It shows you how engaging she is. Nonetheless, I do know she was talking, and I do know at some point while she was talking, she said the Democrats can work with people they don't always agree with. I'll tell you what, I don't criticize Scott, but he missed out on a softball there. He could have knocked that statement out of the park. If she's counting on a bunch of liberals to come together to achieve a common goal, she's going to be waiting a long time. Ask Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian how they were received by liberals when they disagreed with like 1% of Democrat positions. I'll get back to the video, but another thing that made me chuckle the first time I watched this is when Ashley Allison said, they're sadly not getting their news from CNN. They're getting it online. I mean, at least she's aware she's part of a dying media medium, Disappointingly, though, they're clearly still getting some viewership because we hear the lies they perpetuate from average Americans. Do you think those folks came up with that on their own? Can't cable news just hurry up and die already? All right, let's get back to the video.
If you choose to have a U.S. citizen child, knowing you're in this country legally, you put yourself in that position. You put your family in that position. What we did is remove children with their mothers who requested the children depart with them. This was a parental decision, parenting 101. The mothers made that choice. And I tell you what, if we didn't do it, the story today would be Trump administration separating families again. No, we're keeping families together. Parents will make the decision what happens to their child. Having a U.S. citizen child does not make you immune from our laws.
In this case, I'm just really interested to know if you think, considering the data you see, that there is a point where Americans would turn on Trump over. There have been other instances where people will say that for this administration, the cruelty is the point of it. There's been some of that around DOJ and the federal government. They want to do this. Is there any sort of potential for backlash here? I mean, these kids are U.S. citizens. One of them had cancer. And then there's also this detail that the father of one of them filed a petition, an emergency petition, to say that he wanted the kid to stay. So there was apparently a dispute between the mother, who the government says wanted to take the child back to Honduras, but the father who's here did not. These are really sticky situations.
These are tough questions, but ultimately, voters voted for Donald Trump to do a couple things: lower cost of living, secure the border, get immigration under control. We're always top of that list. And so he gets a very long leash from voters, especially from his own base, on this issue. And I think you've had a couple of instances where stories have popped up and they have been outrageous. The headlines really, grab your attention. And then slowly but surely other details come out that kind of paint a very slightly different picture. Oh, this person may have had this record, etc. In this case, it's horrifying to think of, what that 2-year-old or what that 4-year-old must be thinking. At the same time, Donald Trump's own base, I have not seen any sign of atrophy in terms of his voter support for him on this issue, because they believe our immigration system was so broken before that even if there are going to be these headlines, for them, just getting the system fixed and addressing illegal immigration is worth it.
Should we be deporting these kids, Scott?
Well, I think we should keep the families together. I think Homan is right about that. And I think he's also right that if they weren't, people would be howling about it. I don't think Republicans believe that we should let the perfect be the enemy of the good when it comes to controlling what was a massive crisis created by the last administration. There are always going to be individual stories, but the overall program is pretty clear. Deport people who came here illegally, especially violent criminals, get the border closed, which they have effectively done, and you deal with the individual situations along the way. And you have to keep one thing in mind. Whenever you make exceptions, whenever you say, well, in this case, we'll give you some dispensation, the message then to everyone else is clear. Just get here, and maybe you'll find a way to stay. That's what everyone else has done. They're not communicating that.
Are these people, though, I mean, the White House has also today put up pictures of people on the White House lawn with the crimes underneath them. I don't think there's any, the Christian State is very clear on that, right? Here's what it looks like, right? Americans overwhelmingly say they want these people removed from the country. But these are mothers. Now, to my knowledge, there are no details of criminal allegations, aside from, of course, coming to the country. But there were rules where you could come and claim asylum, right? They're showing up at their hearings. They haven't like disappeared into the country, and they have these little kids who are U.S. citizens.
Yeah, I mean, the policy question is, how many exceptions do you want to make? And the Trump administration and President Trump has always said, we're really not going to make any exceptions. And that's, as Krista just said, that's what the American people voted for. Exception after exception after exception got us into the mess in the first place.
You know,
In my experience, I haven't met one Trump voter that's unhappy with the way he's been handling immigration. If they are unhappy with it, it's because it's not enough. I mean, he ran on deporting everyone that was here illegally. So, but I understand he's had a lot of hurdles and even getting criminals out of here. So we'll take what we can get. But you guys let me know in the comments. Are you still happy with the way Trump's handling immigration? Like I said, I think my answer is unequivocally yes. He's shut down the border, but I'd like to see more. Let me know what you think. Since I spend a lot of time watching these clips and I just constantly see how the liberal media paints Donald Trump, and then you see the protesters and the wackos that just hate Trump, the people with TDS, and they're all rooting against him. I know I have never rooted against a president. I've had the feeling of they're kind of overblowing this success. I'm annoyed that this president or politician is getting credit for it. But I've never actively rooted against a president. Why would I? It's in my best interest for the United States to prosper, not only because I love my home, but my finances and quality of life will improve as well. So I have nothing to back this up, but I think 30 to 40% of this country hates Donald Trump, and about 3/4 of those people are actively rooting against him, even though it's against their own best interest. And without question, 100% of the entire liberal news media apparatus wants him to fail so bad they can't stand it. If for no other reason, just to be able to say, I was right, look. But yeah, I've never rooted against a president, but it doesn't stop there for him, though. I think, stay with me here, I think any president that could be successful with like 30% of their campaign promises would be considered by most to be a successful president. If Donald Trump were successful in fulfilling 90% of his campaign promises, it would not be enough to satiate this media's bloodlust for this guy. But us Trump supporters, we love him because despite 1/3 of the country rooting against him, judges not even letting him use his executive powers to get things done, and every Democrat scumbag smearing him at every turn, he continues to fight for our country's future, and he's working for those people that hate him just as hard as he is for you and me. They're just too brainwashed to realize it. But what do you guys think about Trump's first 100 days? Happy, unhappy, happy with some, not happy with others? Let me know in the comments. Oh, and don't forget to let me know what you think of Scott Jennings running for that Senate seat. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you like watching videos of Scott Jennings owning panels of liberals, then click on one of the videos that's about to pop up on your screen. Otherwise, as always, I've got the best viewers on the planet. I really, really appreciate you taking a couple minutes out of your day to watch my video. It means the world to me. Never forget, Jesus loves you. I'll see you guys.